Hey guys, back again with some late night modern on budget with spirits. Um, and this deck is really sweet. Spirits is very underrated in the meta right now, and really, I kept basically the entire main deck. I just cut a few of the cards, and I mainly focus on the mana, and the deck works extremely well. We don't have to run Port Town. I hate that card so much. It's just I hate Port Town. I'm so glad that we have the pathways. Um, and yes, this is a call time deck, so the only card in here that's call time is the pathways. So like you can't play this right now. But also Pathway is just in there because it's a good card. Way better than Port Town. Um, but Spirits is going to be a very like controlly interactive uh, a- uh, creature deck, tribal deck, and it's this version of it is going to be focusing on swinging in, getting some value out of cards like Curious Obsession, and then countering what our opponent's doing, tapping down our opponent's creatures. And here's how we do it. Molosseum Wanderer is a 1/1 flyer spirit. Heads up, every single creature in here is a spirit. Um, but Molosseum Wanderer says, whenever another spirit enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Sacrifice Mausoleum Wanderer, counter target instant sorcery spell unless its controller pays X, where X is Mausoleum Wanderer's power. So this is going to be a way for us to constantly threaten a counter spell on board, and it's going to be very hard for our opponent to be able to do their big things without available open mana. Spectral Sailor is a card I love to use. It's flying, it's a 1/1 for 1, and it's cheap. It's also a spirit. It just happens to be a spirit, and it's going to allow us to keep our speed even in the late game, even if we don't have our Curious Obsession. It's going to be a way for us to draw extra cards. Rattle Chains is another spirit, but says Flash. When it enters the battlefield, target spirit gains hexproof until end of turn. You may cast spirits as though they had flash. So this adds a little bit of validity to the deck, even though we're not running Ether Vial. So Rattle Chains in here is a very sweet inclusion, and it giving hexproof on ETB can throw off our opponent's game plans drastically. Next up is Remorseful Cleric, and it's a spirit. So I toss in the main deck, and it's gonna, some games it's just gonna be a 2/1 flyer, but a lot of other games it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be like your opponents are gonna be like, wait, why do you have Graveyard Hate in the main deck? That's not fair. Let me play my graveyard cards. And so it's gonna be a card that sometimes will just come in absolute clutch, and other times will be a cheap, good flying creature that gets buffed by Supreme Phantom. Supreme Phantom is a 2-drop 1/3 flying that says other creatures you control get +1/+1. This card is amazing, and I love it, and I love that it's 2 mana. It's just I love this card. I wish I had it in real life. I might pick some of it up because playset of it is $6. Next card is our other lord in the deck that says other spirit creatures you control get +1/+1 and have hexproof. And though this is a 3-drop, it gives hexproof. And so it's Rattle Chains, but for your entire board. And so that is awesome. I love this card so much. This was one of the first, like, I've played since Scars of Mirrodin, but one of my favorite memories of when I was bad at Magic was getting absolutely crushed by this card. And I'm not saying that this card only beats decks that are bad or people that are bad at Magic. It's just that's when I was introduced to this card. I was introduced to this card when it came out, and it's very fond memories with this card. Geist of Saint Traft is a 2/2 spirit, hexproof, hard to deal with. That also, whenever it attacks, you create an angel that's attacking. You do exile at the end of the turn, but that Angel of Flying is going to be an extra 4 damage that they probably can't block. And so that's going to add a lot of pressure. And this next card is easily a quarter of our budget, and I would not take it out for anything. This card is probably the best card in the deck. It says when it enters the battlefield, exile up to one target non-land permanent you don't control with CMC 4 or less. Then when it leaves, they get an XX, where X was that mana cost. Now, the thing about this card is if I exile their Karn the Great Creator and then they get rid of Skyclave Apparition, they don't get their Karn back. They get some random 4/4. But if I exile their Death Shadow, possibly like a 12/12 Death Shadow, suddenly they try to kill it and they get a 1/1. No one gets what they want back after the Skyclave Apparition. They always get some lame version of the card. So Skyclave Apparition, for that reason, is just amazing. It's a huge piece of removal. That's why we're kind of controlly. We're going Counterspell, removal. We're going things like Geist of Saint Traff to go just big. We're going Supreme Phantom and Drugstore Captain to go hexproof, bump up all our dudes and just swing in. We have Path to Exile for removal. We have Lofty Denial because it's mana leak but better. If we have any spirit in our deck that is not Skyclave and Geist, then our Lofty Denial is 2 mana counter unless they pay 4. Next up is going to be a card that allows us to go into the late game. It's Curious Obsession. Curious Obsession reads, Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has, when this creature deals damage, combat damage to a player, draw a card. Or you may draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't attack with a creature this turn, sack Curious Obsession. Curious Obsession is a very good way to keep cards coming in, keep being able to play things, and since you have so many flyers in the deck, you don't have to feel bad about swinging in because they're probably not going to be able to block. Anyway, that's it for the main deck non-lands. Now back over to the lands, because I really like this. We have Unclaimed Territories, just add a little bit of extra value. We have Prairie Streams, because entering tapped half the time doesn't hurt us, but it has the potential to enter untapped. Moorland Haunt. I love this card so much. You can pay 2 mana, exile a creature from your graveyard, and if you have any of your lords out, it's suddenly pumped up, and it's free. It's free. Anyway, well, you have to pay 2 mana, but it's like you're not using your graveyard for anything else. Next up is Henjui Pathway. I've already told you I love this card way too much. I'm so happy that we have Pathways in all the colors now. Moving on to the sideboard, though, we have Ceremonious Rejection. Ceremonious Rejection is awesome against things like Tron, counters things like Chalice of the Void, Ether Vial in other decks, also counters Ensnaring Bridge. Basically, against any deck that runs a colorless spell that you might not like, run Ceremonious Rejection. Ether Gust for red and green decks, typically to shove off aggro decks. Celestial Purge to shove off the black-red midrange, the Rakdos midrange, or the Rakdos Death Shadow. Disdainful Stroke for some control matchups. Dovin's Veto for control matchup. Kataki for a way to combat artifact strategies like Hammer Time. Eidolon of Rhetoric to make people only be able to cast one thing each turn, and it's a spirit. And Mystical Dispute for some more combo hate or control hate. Now, I know that I'm giving you a lot of control hate in the sideboard, but it's a soft sideboard. You can do whatever you want with it, shape it around your meta, but I'm giving you different options. Disdainful Stroke, Veto, and Mystical Dispute are all different, and you might want to run different things and against different variants of control. That reason it's in here. It's really that's probably what the deck struggles against the most. And so it's in there just so that you have variation. Anyway, that's it for spirits, and I hope you enjoy my modern decks as much as I do, because these, like, it's budget. It's a way to get into the format without blowing your wallet. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.